Welcome to the Cafe Nightly Show. Today is the 26th of February, 2024. I'm your host, the Goldsmith, and we had a couple announcements and a couple activities over the weekend. Realistically, all ties into one and the same thing we've been talking about dealing with for the last couple days. We do about it Thursday. I was out Friday, so didn't get a chance to really get into it that deep again, and that was the ornament sale. This concept of selling ornaments direct to, China ornaments direct to wholesalers or wholesale to metaventures, and then letting metaventures have a secondary market on that. Again, we'll get into where, how the sale went, how things got distributed, who was buying, and ultimately what we've seen go up on the market and what pricing, kind of this concept of where is that resale opportunity at this point, and getting into that or alongside that, obviously, the concept of what is a good model. How can Upland look at the price setting? How can Upland better look at the market that they're selling into? And again, on the other side, give opportunities to metaventures if that's what they're looking to do. Otherwise, why would they want to sell a wholesaler, sell direct to metaventures first? And a little bit of a snafu along the way, some suggestions that definitely didn't land well when it came to what do we do with this excess inventory that there doesn't seem to be demand for. We'll get into that as well. And at Barco's suggestion, and why not, we can get into something that's been playing all month. We did get into talking about it a few times and reminding people it is going down. The season's coming to an end. Get in while you can get in and get yourself up the leaderboard if you can. And he reminded me to go take a look and see where I lied. And by the time I looked at where I was and where I could have been on the team leaderboard, I saw that it was almost insurmountable for me to get to the top of the leaderboard. But that was for the NFLPA season-long challenge. We'll get into those results. We'll get into the fact that it's over, and we'll get into these contests and how these contests drive activity. Because right now we do have a contest that is still ongoing, and that is for structure ornaments. And we're going to see this on a season-wide basis, one season to the next. We will have a season-long contest. We'll have weekly winners, and we'll talk about how the sale plays into it or doesn't play into that reality that people are trying to do as well as they can in these contests and acquire ornaments specific to those contests. And of course, as we get into all that, before we get into all that, I will give a disclaimer up front. All views and opinions expressed by myself are mine and mine alone. Please don't take them as financial or game strategy advice. Go over some of the pieces of the news in their actuality, in their factuality. But of course, any views, any opinions, any context, really don't take that as a advice for exactly what you should do in the game. Any views I express are mine and mine alone. Shouldn't be taken as coming from the team or the game of Upland. Doesn't represent any team or staff member. So getting up right up front, I do want to take a look at a couple announcements or a couple pieces of communication coming from the team today. This one dropping, and I guess three times today. Looks like twice with an in-game announcement that was a little different, with language a little bit different. But let's take a look at Discord announcement here. That did have a counterpart in some other places, again, in the game of Upland as far as announcements there, but also Upland had put it out in other communication channels as well. I think we did see some sneak into Twitter as well. All right, so taking a look at the order of these messages coming from Upland today, definitely worth considering the source and the timing as well here. There was this concept, or when Upland saw the sale going through earlier today, the concept that what are we going to do that these aren't selling through, that we did, we'll look at the Upland as of right now, how many of these are sold, how many are left. This morning, there was, I think, at one point yesterday, there was less than 100 sold. At this point, or a point earlier today, not too long ago, there was only 150 that sold out of the 750 for these bundles of ornaments. And we'll get into the pricing and how those were set. But, ultimately, there was a lot left. There was this concept where there was, and I'm being told there was this potential floating concept of, can we give these away? How does it get given away? Is there a secondary sale potentially on these if the price isn't set right? And obviously, you can't really do that. If you set a price, if you set a wholesale opportunity, ultimately, you can't be like, oh, I know you paid blank amount. You thought you were getting a wholesale opportunity. We're actually going to lower the price and we're going to sell it to a larger group of people. We can't have that happen. There are ways to reward people for for purchasing at a higher price, and they've done it before with the NFLPA where they lowered their pricing model on NFLPA mementos between 2021 season into the 2022-2023 season. So they went back and they compensated people who bought under the prior pricing model. Understood that that's a possibility, but that's not going to work here. You can't just give them out at a lower price and say, sorry that you paid more for them earlier. But we have a resolution or some chance of a resolution here. At everyone, grab your last chance to get your hands on the Frost Ornament bundles. If, and this is important, if you own an Ornament metaventure, we will be removing them from sale in the in-game store tomorrow, Tuesday, the 27th. Again, that's tomorrow from today, February the 27th at 9 a.m. PT. After this point, we will burn the remaining stock, making the ones that you have already bought even more exclusive. Don't miss this. Oh, don't miss out on this opportunity to grab them before they're gone. Three things. Number one, I think that's a good resolution. I think curtailing the stock to the actual demand is a good solution at this point. I'll get into why we got to this point, but it is a good solution at this point. However, it would have been nice when people were buying them ahead if they knew any unsold stock is going to go and be burnt at a certain point. The reason why it would have been good is because people could have calculated a little better about what they wanted to do for purchasing. Ultimately, the problem with these burnings is mint numbers matter for some people, especially low mint numbers or closures or splitters. And if you're just going to burn half the inventory or 3/4 of the inventory, it looks like it may be the case. But if you're just going to burn 3/4 of the inventory, all your mint numbers get messed up. Your opener, closer, and splitter may end up being part of what gets burnt. You may end up in a situation where you have your opener, closer, and splitter minted, but then you only have 100 others minted out of 750. If that were the case in a series or in a run, it would look weird to say, oh, we have mint number 1, 7, 14. Oh, shoot, my favorite number is 12. There's no 12 that's minted because that mint got burnt. So it would have been nice to know ahead that was going to happen. It would have been really nice if we had a more appropriate number that was put out. Good news is when I brought this point up today and other people brought this point up, I wasn't the first, I wasn't the only, there was many other people. The kind of a response from the team was, we'll do a better job in the future and look at this concept of the right amount going in the market at the right price. We'll look at the what was wrong with the price setting here, or what appears to be missed. But this concept of, oh, we're going to go and look at the market. We understand the point. We'll look at the market. We'll reprice them. That theoretically should have happened before these were originally sold. That way we could have, either had a real opportunity to buy and resell them, or had a fewer number out there, increasing exclusivity to justify a higher price point, or really just, been at a point where if we had all the information up front where Upwind was going to intentionally put out more than the market wanted, or put it at a higher price than most people were going to, and there was going to be a burn event, we could have just planned for it and know what was going to happen. But to get into the long and the short, or actually to cut to the quick of it, realistically, the pricing on these, when we look at them, we can jump over to in-game now. I'm going to jump out of there, so get logged in. But ultimately, if we look at the pricing on these at $45 for 3 ornaments, we're talking about $15 per ornament. When we've seen these ornaments sell before, they've typically been in UPIX. There's been a wide variety of pricing models in the past. There's been some sales, if we go all the way back, where there was some sales that ended up resulting in ornaments that had USD prices as well as UPEX prices. We had, if you go all the way back to Spirit of Halloween, we had some less expensive options, less expensive packages, bundles where you could get one of a variety of different ornaments. You don't know what you're going to get. You're paying for the bundle. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe you get your favorite. Maybe you get a higher rarity than what you thought you paid for. But ultimately, you're going to get an ornament. And if you're buying in a rarity pack, you pay a higher amount, you get a more rare item. But what happened here ultimately was this was an RNG. The RNG wasn't about rarity. The RNG was about essentially what structure it's going to fit. And when we talk about that, what we ultimately mean is people don't have the ability to plan to buy a certain product for their shop. There is a couple ways to interpret that or to look at that. It means that Upland has the opportunity, or Upland's creating the opportunity, I should say, for the overall market for there to be a distribution among shops as far as supply. My shop might not have any small townhouses, and maybe somebody has to go somewhere else to buy the small townhouses. Maybe somebody comes to my shop only because I have micros listed. They would not have come unless I had micro ornaments listed, micro house ornaments listed. And that's the reason why they come to my shop as opposed to somebody else's. That was the mentality, I think, here for the most part. This concept that it distributes the opportunity, that it creates um, a proposition where some people are going to get business based on what they get out of the packs, and that it's not going to be necessarily the same stores having better sales or being able to sell more because they again have built their base. I like the idea of metaventures building their base and building their client set and their customer set, and building a reason for people to shop there. Maybe it's even building into your node. Maybe you have a shop that maybe it's primary people in your node who are going to go and shop at, and that makes a lot of sense to me. So it was a choice, I would say. I think that's a large part of why it was RNG. It was that was part of it. I think the other reason why we saw this be set as RNG by Upland was because they knew that certain sizes were going to be less popular than others. So instead of saying, let's sell out the micros really, really quickly and then see if people might want to buy the Lux Ranch, which there's not that many Lux Ranches in the game of Upland that are built. I think they're a nice canvas when you go to build an ornament. They look like they give you more real estate to build a pretty cool ornament. There's some really great ornaments on Lux Ranches that are out there that use the space very effectively, but they're not things that people are going to be as interested in for having ornaments, especially if they're going to be looking at participating in these contests that require them to decorate their property where they've already built a structure, which again, less structures available of a certain type, less people are going to be decorating with them, less demand there's going to be for those items at that purpose, unless the art is really great and people want to own that art. So with that said, it's gonna really come down to Upland's trying to sell more of a product by randomizing this set, which doesn't necessarily put the metaventurist, the person who's buying this wholesale set, at the center of the process. It's obviously the selling to the center of the process, and ultimately Upland has to put some meat on the bone, looking at the current market if the metaventures are going to make money off these. And I would argue that wasn't done. I think Upland's response that they're going to do a better job looking in the future means it wasn't done. If you looked at the market and you looked at what was out there and available, and you said, I'm looking at frost season ornaments, which there wasn't any. There was Carnival. The Carnival ornaments did sell, and the floor got bought up. We did see that happen. That was because it was a limited supply. They are a year old, and because they were a limited supply, we did see them sell. The bottom of the market sold, and the floor rose. and we saw the floor rise to $15, $16 per item. Well, if the items are $16 a piece or $15 a piece on the open resale market, and the best price you can pay from Upland is $15, and you are MetaVenture, then probably there's not any profit for you to buy at that point. And if you want to buy in USD and then sell it into UPX because you're trying to increase your UPX holdings, we know that there's a differentiated market between UPX and USD on properties already, which is not necessarily the end of the world, but it is a reality. You would expect that you would be able to sell at a much higher UPX value, which again, you would have to look at where the UPX value is on a structure ornament and see, hey, does it make sense that I'm going to have and sell this ornament for 60,000 or 55,000 OPEX? And if that's not going to be the case, then it's really hard to justify selling that particular item at $15. And then we get into the fact that, with this random, variable, the RNG of it all, people are going to get things that are less likely to sell. Because they're less likely to sell, because there's less demand for them, they're going to sell at a lower price. And with this idea of randomly distributing and pushing things out that may not have as much demand for, again, there's something that's not going to have as much utility because there's a lot less of the structures out there. We might see that there's items that there's not even as much demand as there is product for, meaning not only is it a question of how much can we sell it for, how much profit can we make per unit, it's will it even sell in the first place? You have unsold product as a real opportunity, a real potential when you're buying on a resale basis. It comes down to, in many cases, how do you advertise? How do you bring customers in? But it also comes down to the product that you have. And again, there was one elephant in the room, at least for me, is the number of Tokyo ornaments that got mixed into the pie. Or mixed into the batch. The problem with the Tokyo ornaments for me is because they don't really line up with these contests, with these people trying to compete in the contest for the Frost Season Structure Ornament Challenge, the leaderboards, which are, for right now, for me at least, are a big driving force behind people buying ornaments. We know that these contests, as I said earlier, as I say all the time, these contests drive activity in the game of Upland. For good or for ill, they push markets up. They have the floors get bought up. We have people that hoard and collect one item or another because they're trying to be successful, or they're trying to work their way up the leaderboards in one contest or another. And again, with that being the case, I don't think that these necessarily add into that as much, or add into that economy, as add into that that sale, that the sale towards the leaderboards, and they kind of distract from all of that, taking away from, again, somebody buying a resale package that they're hoping is going to have value, particularly during this season as we head towards the end of the ornament contest, I should say, for the Frost season. And at $45, like I said, as a USD only option, it is a decent investment in buying a product that you don't even have a guarantee of what you're getting, which was the case. And it's a relatively decent investment with a market that seems to be at or below that cost. So why did I buy a few of these bundles? I bought a few of these bundles because I had looked and saw, and to see, and what I wanted to buy for structure types was well over $15 and a piece. And I said, hey, I've got a number of structures that I have built in collection areas that I need a frost ornament for. To get a frost ornament, I could go and buy in the secondary, wait for other people to buy, and then buy from them. Or I could go and buy, because I do have a structural ornament shop, I can go and buy one of these bundles and take from it what I want. Again, RNG, I may not get what I want, and then try to resell what I don't want out of that bundle. Do I think that there's going to be a strong profit margin for myself selling into USD? There may be. We will have to see what the demand ends up being, especially depending on how many burns happen, especially depending on how competitive people get towards the end of these contests on trying to accumulate the last 4 or 5 ornaments to try to make sure they stay in the top 10 for a chance of getting a landmark, which is a huge prize. So I definitely understand people's drive to do well in these contests. But with that, again, with that is I may be selling some of those to get rid of them at what I paid for them or less. And then that really is distracting or really is taking away from this original idea that this was a wholesale sale. This was a sale to metaventures for metaventures to turn around and sell to make a profit. Because again, I don't see that as being the main focus of this for myself. And for the majority of the people who purchased, I think they did about the same math. And they said, my main focus is to buy for myself at the lowest possible price. And who knows, maybe that urge, maybe that desire, maybe me doing that helps prop the market up because there's less of these meta ventures who actually want to sell. They bought mostly for themselves and they're selling what they don't need. And again, if that is something that we see happening, maybe that'll prop these up, and maybe just maybe that'll be a USD profit for myself. We'll have to see. But one other thing that I want to put in is when Upland is doing these sales, Upland is ultimately competing with UGC, and UGC has the opportunity to compete with them. What we've seen is delay in getting UGC ornaments approved, and with that, we have a lot of UGC ornaments that could exist but don't, and those markets definitely affect the overall market for a ornament that is there to win a contest. If the UGC market is selling them below a certain price, and the cheapest I can buy the official one from Upland from it for is $18 or $15 in this case, or $20 if that's what it ends up being in the future, then we're going to see that there's going to be a little bit of demand for the cheaper one if that's what ends up happening. So Upland needs to consider that as well, especially if they're selling in USD, which is different to me than UPX, is different to a lot of people than UPX. If they're going to be selling in USD, they have to consider how that actually sits, again, both between the resale market for what's already out there, allowing a resale market on the new stuff that's going out there, and considering the fact that UGC is a competitor, which it really should be. Upland should be getting these UGC ornaments approved through as quickly as possible. They should be out in the market. If people are selling them at 15,000 UPX, then that is going to be a pressure on Upland selling them at $15 USD to you and me and everybody else who has a structured ornament shop. Definitely worth noting. Let's take a look and see how well this announcement. I said that there was about 700 or 699 available when that sale happened, or when that announcement of the burn happened. The sale's been going on for a few days now, a couple days now, anyways, 2 full days and change, and a whopping total of 770 were available. 681 are available now, almost just there, just almost there. 100 of these have sold, not quite, but getting there. At $45 a piece, still $4,500. Sorry, $4,500. Yeah, $4,500 if we get to 100 of revenue for Upland. Okay, that's revenue for Upland. But what's going to happen to those? When we go to the resale market. Ultimately, I think a good percentage of those, my purchases included, were done about acquiring them for myself because I didn't see a 30 or 40 or 60% margin for me to turn and resale that necessarily for $20 or $25, which I would want to be at if I was buying for the purpose of profit. Again, on the USD side, that's what I expect. If on the UPX side, I'd expect to buy it at $15 only if I thought I could sell it at, let's say, 40,000 UPX or 35 or 40,000 UPX. That's where my mind would be. And that's where my mind is. Again, my primary was to buy for myself. There's a lot of the people's primary who was to buy for themselves. That was a different calculation and part of what propelled the just under 100 that have been sold. And, with the note that we were at 699 right before Upland made the announcement of the burn, we're going to say that this burn may have incentivized another almost 20 of these to get sold, aka people saw the reduction in overall supply as maybe a positive thing for themselves, as a metaventure. Tomorrow, these will get capped, the sale will stop, what will get burned will be burned. And again, my hypothesis is, or my own assessment is, we're probably not going to see a ton get sold between now and the burn tomorrow, and now and the closure tomorrow of the sale. We'll see what this ends up looking like. But again, 3/4 of these, it looks like, at least from my eyes and where I'm looking at, 3/4 of these are going to go unsold. And that comes right down to this number right here, $45 or $15 a piece. That also comes down to, in many ways, this idea of RNG, this idea that we don't know what we're getting. We're buying a blind bag. And as a real retail establishment, that can be difficult for people to swallow. I personally understand why Upland's doing it. I, as a retail establishment in the game of Upland, don't think that plays to my best interest, even though it plays to Uplands and the gamification of Upland and the concept of travel and localization and distribution of market. It does play into all those things, but it doesn't play into my metaventures or Lily's metaventures or whoever has a structure ornament shop. And maybe Upland can kind of get this wrapped around the next time they're going to put this out. Maybe they can do some research more, and they have suggested that they will. And since the game is so heavily built on the economy of the game, or since it's such a large part of the game, I would love to see the economy of the game really be evaluated. Look at what the market sets. Look at what resale is on certain items. Look at what the competition is, and build a market set, build an offering, build a retail wholesale distinction that really favors those who are going to buy solely for the purpose of reselling. Give them a discount. Give them a discount that is enough to make it worth their while, for them to advertise, for them to put time in listing and pulling things down and pricing things, and of course, and giving rewards programs or loyalty programs if they choose to do so. So getting off that run here, I do have to obviously point out that there is a reason to buy these ornaments. It's beautification of your property. It's a little bit of utility for the property. $15, is that enough utility for that item to go on your structure for 45 days? For a contest, that's up to you. Ultimately, the contest is there as well, and that is to go and try to win a contest. We have leaderboards for the different statuses in the game of Upland. We have a standalone leaderboard down there for Uplanders, which I don't know if Upland should have done things a little differently down there. There's still getting to the top 10, name in the hat, get drawn, and you could have yourself a landmark. And what's interesting on the Uplander side of things is there's not 10 people who have a structure with an ornament in a collection area that they can decorate. So it's going to be everybody. It looks like every Uplander who can get to that point is going to be in the drawing, is going to be in the top 10. Excuse me. There's not going to be 25 deep. So there's not going to be 25 people getting an ornament at the end because, again, there's not 25 people to get an ornament. I want to take a look at this leaderboard for a couple other reasons as well. Part of the announcements today was, if we do go back and look, because we can do that, is this leaderboard update. And it was kind of cool to point out that the leaderboard contest is going on. Is it going to invigorate some people, make them more active? Probably. Is it fun to see what's going on there? Yeah. Was it a little bit? I don't know if it was disheartening, but it felt a little disheartening to see that the chief executives, and I might as well get to that leaderboard if I'm going to be saying it, that the chief executives are not really putting as much effort in, as at least it doesn't seem, as people who in the executive class. Theoretically, the people who are chief executives have larger accounts. Is that a matter of who's more active or less active in the game? Is that a matter of other priorities, I don't know. But let's take a look at the Frost Ornament Challenge ongoing weekly basis. There are going to be some giveaways, some weekly giveaways here. Top 50 players on each leaderboard each week, each Thursday. Name in a hat, 10 get drawn, 0.05 spark. You can win in multiple weeks. Pretty simple, pretty easy. And that's for each leaderboard. As I mentioned, if we look at different leaderboards, you will see that there's less than 50 on a lot of those leaderboards. Executives being the excuse me, executives and directors being a little bit of the exception there. Players who rank in the top 25 at the end of the season do get a block explorer. Top 10, like I said, that landmark drawing again on each leaderboard, and the top number one place to each leaderboard, a unique badge, Beverly Hills property as a prize, plus the block explorer, plus the name being in the hat to potentially win a landmark. So those are all good things. Again, this is a matter of tying into the gamified earnings. We've kind of gone over that, the gamified yield. This is also going into this idea of being able to make, a profit off collecting, a profit off an activity and being involved in that activity. But we also are looking at a couple other things here. We have some more utility for an ornament that got sold last year. So here's all our carnivals. These all count. These are all part of it. And then now this structure ornament sale that we just had for frost season, one that's still open, the one that's not yet sold out, and is a long ways from being sold out. Those are also going to go into what's available to purchase and use. And then theoretically, UGC frost ornaments, if they exist, those are also going to qualify. Those are also going to be able to be used in theory, unless Upland says at some point that, hey, you can only use what you can use on these. So you can only use the Upland provided version. I hope that's not the case, but maybe they could do that in the future if they want the $15 value per structure ornament to stick, which I think they have to reconsider that value here before we have our next sale. It's time to dive into the frost season ornament challenge. Obviously, we're a few weeks in. Load. Here we go. And as I promised, as I said, as I've complained a little bit about, we get down here to Uplander status. And again, congratulations, Uplanders. If you are in the game, you have a Uplander status. You're not yet a pro. You got under 100,000 UpX value, and you've got a structure built in the game. It may have taken you a while. Hopefully, you're not a multi-counter. Please don't be a multi-counter. But it may have taken you a while. You don't have a lot of spark. You have to get somebody to help you, or you have to wait a really long time, and you get your structure built, and then you obviously go and spend $15 USD on an ornament, plus the profit that the ornament shop's going to make. So you're paying $18 or $20 just to have that ornament to put on your structure. And again, that's pretty big deal. Unless you ended up with that ornament some other way, it's a pretty big investment for somebody whose account value is less than 100,000 OPEX. So you see that we only have a handful of people on the side. Each and every one of them is going to get a block explorer. I don't think we're going to end up with 25. And you've got a good chance right now to only have 10. And if we only have 10 again, every one of them is going to be in the drawing for that landmark. So congratulations on that side. Let's take a look at what's a little more competitive here. On the pro side, obviously, we know that you don't have that million UpX value in the game of Upland. You may not have been in the game as long. Even if you have been in the game for a long time, you haven't built up that huge UpX value. Keep in mind that things like assets, some of our assets don't count into those values. So people can have a lot of assets, not so much UpX value, and still be here in the pro level. So we see that top right here is 5 points or 5 ornaments up on collection properties. That's the key note. They have to be collection properties. They have to be frost season ornaments or carnival ornaments, which count as frost season. And then we're going to get into and where we get a little more competitive. Here we go into the director. We got all the way up here up at the top. Camoville has 41 up, 19, 13, 10. We keep going down. But again, our top 10 here, they've got some ornaments up, and it's a little bit of competition. You get that extra ornament or two, you get into the top 10. You don't get another ornament or two, you don't get in the top 10. You don't get drawn at a 1 of 10 chance of getting a landmark. So I could see people putting that extra effort in, spending that a little more OPEX, selling a property to buy a ornament in OPEX, or trading something that they have that's an asset to get an ornament. Who knows? Maybe even it ends up being so desperate that they trade a totem for an ornament. I don't know. It's a possibility. It could happen. So we'll see. We'll see how that rolls out. But again, there's a reason to want to be high on that leaderboard. And then, of course, we got into, as I mentioned, the discrepancy here. And the discrepancy is, if I look at the executives, 50, 30, 27, 25, 21, 20, 19, 17, 16, these are competitive. You have to get a bunch of ornaments. You got to get them in collection areas. You got to get them up on your properties. You got to have built those structures, which takes time, takes spark, takes dedication. Uh, you have to have done all those things, and it takes a little bit here. Obviously, larger accounts the uh, than the director accounts. It makes sense that these are higher totals than the director accounts. And then you come down here where you look at chief executive, which has a lower total right here at the top than you see in executive. And then you look at second place, and it's got a lower amount than you see in second place in executive, which is kind of, I don't know, maybe a little disappointing. But then you also see that you've got a lot of the chief executives that can't even get one ornament up. Come on, guys. Again, this is one of those questions of, is it a matter of people's account focuses being different, them doing different things with their account than people at different statuses? Is it people being less active and not taking these contests as seriously in the chief executive class, or people who have built their accounts to a little larger scale? They've got a different focus in the game than people who are executives. I don't know. I can't tell you, but I can tell you that it would be nice to see a little bit of more effort and contemplation of what's going on there. Because again, this is a big deal. 1 in 10 chance, if you get 10th place by the end here, 1 in 10 chance that you could get yourself a landmark. And to me, those odds are very good. Again, spending $600 on ornaments for a 1 in 10 chance, probably not worth it. Putting a little more effort and selling a property and buying one more ornament to get yourself into that top 10, or selling two properties and maybe getting two ornaments to put yourself or secure yourself in the top 10. I can see that as something that a lot of people could see as in their interest. And for me, I'm probably going to be considering that between now and the end. I can see how steep, if we look at executives up here, I can see how steep that climb is. If you really want to be in the top 5 to really ensure you're in the top 10, it's a pretty steep climb to get there from 10. If you're at 10, it's a long ways up that hill. We go down to the bottom of the top 10 and we're still at 15, which is doable for me anyways, but we'll see where those numbers are, those totals are at the end. And that was part of my impetus to buy the $45, pay the USD, cross the fingers. Maybe I get ornaments that actually fit structures that I have built in collection areas. Maybe we'll see. Maybe I get lucky. And that was kind of my mentality. That kind of the reason why I did that. Lily says maybe CEs, maybe they'll see all these boxes, or maybe they see all these boxes and then freak out and they ignore them. I don't know, Lily. I don't know if that's that. But again, I do think that there's some CEs that are potentially less active, and maybe they're part of the game, but they don't really get in and put as much time into certain parts of the game. I don't know what the whole story is, but I can pick on the chief executives, saying that not only is it a bunch of chief executives that exist in the game whose names don't show up here, it's also the fact that when you go and look, their totals are a lot lower than the top totals. When we look at the executive side, it would be interesting to see that flip or change here shortly. But of course, that aside, that is one of the big pushes here between now and the end of frost season for people to buy ornaments, and why they might want to build their collection to do so. And that's my appeal. My appeal is, if you want to get some frost ornaments, look at a couple ways. Number one, look at metaventures. If you're a metaventure who bought these, put some on market, maybe I may not be selling mine. I may be swapping because I could need some more structural ornaments of certain types that I don't have. And I've got some structural ornaments that maybe somebody else wants to get up. Maybe that is going to happen more, and maybe we'll see less of these items go out on the market. And I think it is a reasonable and expected activity here for people who are players of the game of Upland, even though they have a meta venture. If they have the opportunity to purchase a meta venture bundle, if they're planning to put it on resale and they get exactly what they want for their collection, they're not going to put it up for resale. They're going to keep that for themselves. And ultimately, that may affect how many of these end up on the secondary market. Well, that's enough there of that. I'll set that aside. And the one thing I do want to say and kind of put out here is, I mean, how do you really read the market? How can Upland better read the market? They can look at what the secondary options are. They can look at the cost of ornaments. Again, the in-season ornaments are a different story than ornaments for different parts of the year. We know that. The in-season has a specific utility now that they will not have later in the year. They have more value now during the season while the contest is going on than they will later after the contest is over. They still can be put up on your properties. They can still be used year round, but they do not count towards these contests, which have some pretty strong prizes. So long as we're outside of the season. I'm holding on to my ornaments for next season, the following season, because I want to participate in those contests. But ultimately, you can see people get to the end of a season and rebalance their portfolio and sell those ornaments, and then they get around to the next part of the year, the next season, and they're spending that UPEX that they saved up or earned by selling their old ornaments or other ways, and they're going and buying more ornaments, which is part of what buys the floor up and part of what makes them more expensive in season than they would be at any other time of the year. But if Upland goes and looks at that market and sees at least the in season and sees what the price is there, is they have to go and start with where the floor is, and then they have to multiply it by the fact, or they have to consider anyways, that the number of property or structural ornaments they're going to sell is going to add to the supply. So that's going to affect potentially the market value overall. So they have to consider that. And then they have to consider, well, if we're going to give our meta ventures a true opportunity at profit, we have to sell below what that floor is. And knowing that floors can get drawn by increasing the supply, they have to consider that as well. So theoretically, they would see the floor and they would put a price that would be 20 to 30 to 40% less, and they would maybe even discount a little further, just depending on how much increase in supply that they're planning to put out there with their sale. That's what my suggestion would be. That's at the very least what makes sense to me. And if they're doing that with in-season ornaments, fine, but just keep in mind you're also building a premium in, saying that you're paying extra for that ornament because you bought it in season. Those ornaments, even if I buy them and sell them and make a profit, the person who buys them from me may see that their value decreases out of the season because they have a different utility. They can't be using the same contest. The people who bought them just for the contest may not want to hold on to them for 12 months until next year. They may sell some of them, which is going to push the market down. And if Upland is a game that is built around economics, which it's built around economics, is meant to be, let's take those considerations into play when we're talking about pricing things. I've worked in enough industries, or a few here, that do have retail aspects to them, that I do see and do know that there are certain materials, there's certain types of products that, as silly as it sounds, have different prices at different times of the year. And that's because of supply, and that's because of potentially shortage or realistically the supply chain considerations, getting things and selling them through. You can also have production playing a role. Obviously on NFTs, production means nothing, but production can play a role. Different price for apples at one point of the year than another because of where that is in the production cycle. Is it right as they're coming off the tree? Is it early and it's a more expensive process to get them picked and around? All of those considerations, again, not directly tying into upland side for production, but because of utility at different times of year, you could definitely see those as having fluctuating values. Really should be all baked into that pie and considered. With that, um, I hope and I think that it's a strong possibility that upland is going to price these differently in the future. I had this thought, and my thought that just really beat me over the head yesterday when I saw how many of these were trickling out slowly. And before they had officially said they were going to burn the remainder, but when I felt that there had to ultimately be unsold products at some point, was would Upland have made more money for themselves? Again, they're a company, they got to make money. I get it. Would they made more money for themselves if they had lowered the price? Keep in mind, the cost to produce these very, very likely is more or less fixed. You could say it's going to cost more to make 100 than 50 because they have to have little extra EOS to build them. Potentially that is a little bit different, but not a ton. So if our costs are pretty much the same, if they could sell 3 times as many by having the sale price, they're going to make more profit. I ultimately saw that if the prices were $750 per item, the demand would have been higher. I 100% agree with that concept. I don't necessarily think that they would have, or I don't know, there's no reason for me to know they would have sold 3 times as many. Upland can go look at cost setting. They can look at models. They can look at price points. They can look at where the market lies to help give them that information. And there's all kinds of modeling tools that are used when we're talking about price setting, ideal price setting with a fixed cost production line, which Upland essentially has a more or less fixed cost production line. If they made twice as many, it would cost roughly the same amount. So let's see that in action in Upland in the future here. Let's try the next one. Realistically, they put 750 of these bundles, or 770, 770 of these bundles out, 3 in each one. You're looking at what, 2,300, 2,400 that they end up putting out. So if they had just gone and turned around and said, we're going to put a whole total of 1,200 out, we're going to have the price, and they could sell all 1,200 as opposed to selling 300, then they're making even more profit that way. So let's consider that Upland. Hopefully it works out for you guys. Again, we can consider and we can argue, and I know people already are definitely doing so, about the RNG sales going into metaventures, if that's the right way to do these bundle sales. I get where Upland's coming from. I know as a somebody who has a metaventure, as a metaventurist, haha, hint, hint, as a metaventurist, I see those prices as being one concern. Lowering them is good. I also see the RNG as being a separate one. It affects my desire to buy, even though I can see why Upland might want to sell that way. And again, we have a next season coming right up. We'll have Blossom season coming up, and hopefully when they have those sales, they consider that. Hopefully they also consider UGC, and UGC can get some ornaments out there. And if UGC is going to have a different utility than the official ones, and maybe they get counted differently into these counts, that's up to Upland to set up. I don't think it's necessarily the right thing to do, but if they do that, you have to advertise that ahead before the sales. They can't put that utility in after the fact. They can't change the utility of these going forward. Keep in mind, these contests that Upland's putting out, these are new. We haven't done them for a while. Them being on a seasonal basis, that's a new thing. So we will watch and see how Upland treats these moving forward. They've already said that even though they're doing these contests this way this time, they may not run the same way into the future. But I do want to go take a look at something that I was asked to take a look at, and that is going back and taking a look at the announcement over here. Let's see if I can get this to pull up, and that is over here in event winners. And here we go. There we go. And there we go. So what we are looking at is if I go all the way down, what I'm looking at is the different teams. Every team with an NFLPA, again, we can get into how easy it is to keep track of one team and the other because some cities have or some states have more than one team. But every team has 10 spots here. Again, a top 10 leaderboard, and they've got prizes right here. Look at this: 699,734 fan score for TM. Guess what? I'm nowhere near there for Arizona. But for that, TM won 100,000 upix, 0.25 spark, got a reward block explorer, and got a badge. Very cool. Very, very cool. Again, this is something that a lot of people who have been collecting NFLPA legits this season have been aiming towards and put an effort towards. This is a culmination of that. Again, that's top 10 positions on every team in the NFLPA agreement or NFLPA partnership that Upland has. So congratulations to everybody. I'm not going to look at every single name because look at all those names. But it is over in winners. If you want to see if you're on the list where you line up, if you're on the leaderboard for a number of teams, go and check out event winners, and you can see this table and you can get a closer look, and you can, again, start counting the upix because up to 100,000 per team, that could add up really fast. I do, and I can tell you, I do see, and I can tell you that it's the same people high on a lot of these lists. That does happen. People put a lot of upix in, and they get a lot of prizes. And again, I'm looking at almost every team, and it's the same person at the top. But places 2, 3, 4, 5 aren't. So at least there's that. At least there's that if you are somebody who's been collecting NFLPA for the season. Again, congratulations if you're on those top 10 boards. And hopefully you're pretty happy with those prizes. Again, that spark is a great bonus for the top three. 0.25 for first, 0.2 for second, 0.1 spark for third. And with that, I'll just put this focus back on this idea that moving forward, these contests matter. Contests are a form of utility that Upland uses, a form of gamification that Upland uses to give assets some value, at least for a short period of time, that doesn't exist solely in the art, that doesn't exist solely in the mint number, that doesn't exist just because of provenance, just because it was this season, this year. It was, in 10 years, anything that Upland puts out today will be 10 years old. Those things can all have their own value on a digital collectible. But again, these contests are their own form of value inflation, or if we want to not use, scary terms like that, we can just say it's a way of increasing the value for a limited period of time. And if that's the case, then we can consider that maybe things have a value. Things are worth something, or to pay a small premium. Like I said, on the ornaments, maybe if it's one or two ornaments that you have to get to the top of that leaderboard, maybe you do it. That's up to you in your UPX account and how you decide to spend your UPX. There's other options. There's other opportunities in the game. But with these contests coming forward, it is also a form of gamification. We have gamified earnings now in the game. So at least this is starting to build out for all the people who said, I came for the buying and selling and swapping for the economics. I came as a property trading game. I didn't come to race cars around tracks. This is part of a property trading game, at least as far as I'm concerned. This idea of, utility and earnings based on improvement of property, and you have to improve a property in order to decorate that property, and you've got to decorate that property with the right ornaments at the right time of year, which is about collecting and purchasing and trading and swapping that gets you into these leaderboards. So I think these are at least on the structural ornament leaders board side of things, these are a form of really focusing on both the idea of rewarding development or requiring development to earn a reward, and ultimately creating a use case, a reason for a certain asset class, specifically structural ornaments, to exist in the first place. So that is something we will be looking forward to until the middle of March, the continued contest on a weekly basis, having a snapshot, and that snapshot potentially earning people 0.05 spark if they're in the top 50, if their names are drawn into those 10 lucky drawing. And then we will see this reset next season. I am sure that this will be a part of that season as well. And that'll be Blossom season. Otherwise, what I do want to look forward to here as well as three things. Three things that we do kind of have some teasers on over the next week. The big teaser with the car sale that we just had happen, and we can put a little asterisk on the car sale and say the same thing. They did sell through. There was a little bit of a front loading where people were buying the ones early, when people got better rewards for buying early on. But this idea of buying in USD if you're going to resell, and is the price set at the right amount? Is there enough profit built in there, potential profit built in there? It's RNG, so people are not necessarily choosing what they get. They get lucky and they get what they get. All of those things aside, that's another conversation that we could jump down the rabbit hole on, just like the ornament price setting. But with that sale, there was that hint. The hint dropped that we are going to be getting travel between cities in the not so distant future. Like I said, it's been promised that it's going to happen the first quarter of 2024. So I see Upland definitely pushing that forward. That's going to be coming. Hi, KO Ninja. We're going to be seeing that come out for the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll probably see that get dropped in and announced. Another big one is get ready for Totem version 2. We've talked about totems. We'll talk about them again. This idea that they're not so hard when you're doing it together, when there's resources to lean on. But cycle 2 is not necessarily going to be the same as cycle 1. It's definitely worth having a little bit of consideration of that up front. If you are using a source, if you're using a tool, it may be worth checking the tool before you go and you start spending. Don't use your based on your last season, because that could have changed, or your last cycle, because that could have changed or may change. So keep that in mind. Keep your eyes open on that. And then one other thing is, I've been asking for it. A lot of people have been asking for it. More information, details, an opportunity to make those reservations for Genesis Week 2024 live in-person event. This is something that, at least for me, is a part of the gamification of the game of Upland, is the community. The community is a big part of why to play Upland. Why do you want to go and spend money on these assets, or spend time playing this game? Is this play, connect, earn, or play, earn, connect, where you are playing the game. We're getting a little more gamification over time. There's some more gamification for some people than there is for others. We can argue about when everyone will be happy with the amount of gamification there is, but it's part of the game. The earn, obviously, you buy things, you sell it at a profit. That's earning. We know that. That's the only reason some people are here. But for me, it's all three. And of course, that connect portion. So when we do have that announcement, we are looking forward to being able to make it. We're looking forward to being able to talk about Genesis Week, but we need that information. So Upland kind of said, when people asked, hey, we've been asking, hey, I'm going to ask again, when are we going to know about Genesis Week? There was, or could you tell me when the date is? They kind of said, oh, we'll tell you very soon. And again, soon as this word gets thrown around on Upland, and we can joke about it all we want, but I think that we're getting close. I hope we're close, because we were originally told, when we asked back in December, the team numbers, and then we were told end of January 2024, beginning of February 2024. We're almost done the month of February. I can't wait until June to book my June flight. It's not going to exist. I can't wait till May. I don't want to wait till May. It creates a lot of uncertainty. It might affect prices. It might affect my ability to go, because I will have to worry my personal schedule, especially if it's going to be a different time than I expect it to be. And then finally, I just need to, or want to, be able to budget for it, because money is money. Things cost money. So let's get this quick enough. Let's get this quicker, Upland. I'd love to see it. Let's get this out in the next 2 weeks, and let's get there. Again, be ready for totems. Put your money aside if you're going to Genesis Week. I'd love to see you there. And then, of course, just just get ready for the next levels here of potential travel by car moving forward. And with those, I'm going to check some comments, see if there's anything good, see if anyone has some good things to go over. But of course, opening the floor up here right at the end of the show, taking a look. Look at that. No use to me. These are all map assets. People saying no use to me, junk. Why do they exist? Again, there is different levels of the game. There's different things that people are doing. We talked about integration. If we're talking about map assets, integration of layer 1 and layer 2, people do have assets in the game of Upland that have some level of utility in the third-party game. We see that with Spark Tycoon, where having a structure allows you to build nodes in their game, and not having that structure prevents you from being able to build nodes in their game. So you have to do something in Upland, own something in Upland in order to have that utility outside of Upland or in that layer 2 environment. We can see that taking form with other assets as well, and we've been told they will with structure ornaments. We've been told they will in some way, shape, or form in many games have some type of utility for map assets. Pretty easy. It's not where a lot of people want to say I have to leave Upland to get utility, but ultimately that is utility that's getting built into those items. And ultimately it's not for everybody. It's just like if I go and I have an opportunity to buy and pay for a cosmetic seasons pass, like we had for $7, $6.99, I can choose to do it or not. It's only going to change the way I see the game. It's going to allow me to change my property card, put little snowflakes on my block explorer as it travels around the game, which is all fine and well. And it's a choice I can either make or not make. Ultimately, there's a lot of assets in the game of Upland that are the same way. If you don't know why map assets exist, don't buy 50 of them. If you are really interested in map assets, you can make that decision that you want to buy some. It's just coming down to it. D-Tech said he's got 18 ornaments. He has to figure out which of his collections to put them on. And of course, you have to have those structures built first. And that is something that encourages people to build structures out in collection areas. That is something that puts people in the position of being rewarded for structures they've already built in those collection areas. Blue saying, I'm not sure why people want landmarks. No utility for property. I'd argue against that. Again, people see properties, they see properties that have some real world attachment. They put value on them. Again, we can talk about what utility is really, how do I get use out of something? I will tell you what the use of a baseball card is. The use of a baseball card, like many NFTs, is that people want to feel a connection to whatever it is that represents. Is that your favorite baseball player? Is that their rookie year? That rookie year of Nolan Ryan is a different cost card than a flare that, again, there was 50,000 of them available, 100,000 of them available. Nolan Ryan, different value for that card because of exclusivity, but also different value for that rookie card because it represents something different to the people who own it. And obviously, so we can get into signatures or we can get into limited editions, but it's that connection to the player that determines some of the value. So I would argue that that connection to that real world landmark has its own value. Whether you see it, obviously don't buy the landmark if you don't see that value, or somebody else who does see it. Obviously, they could apply their own value to that property at a different rate than anybody else. The other purpose of landmarks is they historically have just been really heavy dividend earners because they have high mint values. They're often in collection areas. You can get that into the collection, and in many cases just farm a lot of UPIX and yields, more so than other properties. And then finally, you get this unique structure that gets to get built on that property, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool opportunity. And what has been told by Upland, again, I think they've danced around it a little bit, meaning when it's been asked recently, they kind of almost sounded like eventually is a long ways down the road. And that is that Upland talked about the potential of having additional use cases for these landmarks, utility and function that would not exist in other structures. To me, a long time ago, it sounded like they were talking about cafes before there was such a concept of cafes, places where you could host events and potentially events and concerts at these landmarks that you couldn't host at other places. Now we know about the concept of cafes that do not require a landmark to build a cafe. Maybe they've deviated from that original model a little bit. Maybe the concept of having enhanced utility on a landmark, different ways you can utilize that landmark. Maybe those could still happen, even though we've seen a division of what is a cafe sense. I don't know. I really don't. But it is something that if we look early in the game of Upland, they have said when they've been asked about it, they kind of kick the can on a little bit, but it sounded like there still is some possibility that we have an enhanced utility of landmarks. And Blue, that's why everyone gets excited about landmarks. They hope for that a utility that may or may not come. I agree, it may never come, but that's what people are banking on. It is something that has a special real world tie, just like I've got some properties that I value very highly that are not landmarks because of real world ties. And, it has a better visibility. People see them. And again, that standalone structure, a structure that's different than any other structure the game of Upland, for me, that's wicked cool. That's something that I really like and would like to have for myself, and not to resell, not to flip, but to have and to hold and to love and to cherish. So looking forward to my potential to get a landmark. I'm going to put a little bit of effort there, but I'm not going to go crazy. I'm buying a ton more at $45, $44.99. Again, that's what we're looking at. I'll say it again. Upland has said that they're going to go and evaluate this. I really hope they do. I think it would be better for me as a MetaVenture owner. I think it would be better for all the other MetaVenture owners, and I think it'd be better for the game. So for tonight, thank you so much for being here. We'll have more to report when we have more announcements tomorrow, I'm sure. And again, congratulations to the winners on the NFLPA leaderboards. Good luck to those who are continuing to participate for Frost Season leaderboards, Frost Season Structure Ornament leaderboards. And let's keep on going. If you haven't yet finished all of your season, or haven't at least finished 5 of your season tasks to get that max 14.7% dividend on an annual rate. If you haven't done that yet, you've got a couple weeks left, but let's do it. Do it now. Get your 14.7. Hold on to that. We don't want to lose that earning potential. And of course, that is part of the gamification of Upland at this point. Again, thank you so much for being here. If you are in the cafe, please feel free to unmute your mic. The floor is yours.